for everyone to make sure their mics are turned on and up towards their mouths.
Call the Village of North Fond du Lac Board of Trustees to order Monday, May 18th. Due to the state of emergency related to COVID-19, the village will have limited seating at the village board meetings. In addition to the board meeting being available on cable channel 980, you are also able to dial in and listen and speak through the telephone. If you would like to call in, please call 920-322-6120 between 5:45 and 5:55 on the day of the evening. Audience members are requested to sign in the sheet provided at the registration table. Citizens wishing to be heard on topics not listed on the agenda may speak under item C. Citizens may be given an opportunity to speak during discussion of items listed on the agenda and are allowed 3 minutes for comments. Disruptive discussion or profanity will not be allowed. Roll call of officers.
Duffy.
Here.
Horning.
Here.
Streeter.
Here.
Price.
Here.
Will.
Here. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, any citizen participation? Ready. Announcements. Anybody have any announcements? All right, President's business and staff reports. Nick?
I can give a brief report. Obviously, we continue to navigate the COVID-19 situation and ever-changing rules and regulations with that, and trying to adapt locally for that, and we'll talk about that more later on in our agenda. We did have another drive fail last week on the Gen 9 server that we had been having issues with. We're almost completely migrated off of that server, so that's good news. So, and we won't have to deal with it in the future. I mentioned we received our financial audits last week, or finals on Wednesday, so spent some time reviewing those, and over the weekend and today reviewing that. Obviously, we have Baker Tilly on the line here to discuss that on the agenda tonight also. And I did attend a webinar with FEMA in regards to the COVID-19 and possible funding that will be available for the disaster declaration for that. It was maybe an hour long and beneficial. So just kind of navigating through that at this point. There's no end date in sight for that disaster, so to speak. So at this point, we're just documenting like we have been since the beginning. So that's all I really have.
Okay. Any updates from any other departments or?
No, nothing to note right now.
Okay. Consent agenda, approve the minutes of the following village board meeting from May 4th and approve invoices and authorize checks to be drawn on the respective funds as indicated. General fund, $124,964.71. Library fund, $524.40. VMS fund, $2,157.25. Capital projects, $378.40. Water department, $6,630.83. Wastewater department, $2,260.01. Stormwater fund, $700.54. Community Development Authority TIF, $17.27 for a grand total of $137,633.41. What is the board's pleasure?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Take a second.
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion by Will, second by Price to approve the consent agenda as read. Are there any questions or comments on this? Mike?
Page 3, and Nick, the first one, the Charter Communications, that Ethernet for $1329.30. Is that an annual expense? Is that a new expense? I mean, I know we always get.
So that's ongoing. That's every month. I was on the phone last week with Spectrum. We actually get 4 Spectrum bills every month for internet service, telephone, most of it's internet service. So that's basically just split out between a bunch of departments, but there is, in one of those, if you recall, we added a fiber to this building, and that's a fairly expensive monthly cost.
Is that $1329?
No, that $1329 is just it's a portion of that. It's $440 some a month.
I don't remember
So that might
seeing
be 3 months of it. There was a big disconnect with the billing.
Okay.
Because it was put on through the county. The county is what helped get that fiber here. The county's been working with Charter, and the bills got sent to Charter, and we paid them, and they weren't getting paid. So that's why this was kind of a true-up bill. It's more than it normally would be. So to answer your question, yes, that fiber is the Ethernet. That's actually 3 months. If you divided that by 3, that's probably the monthly amount.
Okay. Another page 11, I just got a just a question on waste management.
Sure.
That seems to be creeping up too. I just wondering if the fees increased or just because of people staying at home? There's more garbage or something, because I don't remember us spending 14,000 in a month for waste management.
I honestly wouldn't know. I don't know that that number's crept up. I'd have to look into it a little bit further.
Maybe
Darren hasn't said
Darren-
anything.
Maybe Darren just.
I'll ask him.
See if there's a spike, and the charges have went up, or just
I-
because there's more garbage,
I,
you know?
yeah, I think we do have a contracted amount with them for the recycle fee, so I don't know what these charges specifically are for on here. I'd have to look into it a little bit further.
Okay, that's all I got, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else have anything? All right, seeing no other flags. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as read, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Administrative, discussion and possible action on the 2019 financial audit.
Okay, I'll start that off. We have John Cameron and, I forgot your name again, Ryan, on the phone here with us. We'll see how this works with the phone, guys. If you can't hear some of the questions, just ask us to speak up on our end, and I think you guys were coming in pretty loud and clear, so I don't know if, John, you want to start the discussion out and go with it?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, thank you very much for having us. I think I heard you, Nick, but you introduced everybody, but just to make sure, I've also got Cameron Sawyer on the line. Cameron has been involved in the village's audit for the last few years and was at the board meeting with me last year. He's actually from that area as well, too. So he manages the governmental fund side of the audit. And then Ryan O'Donnell is also on the line, and he manages the utility side of the audit and has been involved with the village's audit for the last several years as well. So we're going to share this presentation. I'm going to get us rolling, mention a few things, and we'll end up going through the numbers with you, some highlights and graphs like we have in the past. First thing I want to point out is obviously we have a couple of things that are definitely different from last year. Thank you very much for accommodating us. And we just issued the financials, all the final reports last week, and there was discussion of waiting, and there's so much uncertainty out there. As long as we're done, Nick and I talked and just decided it would be a good idea to have this meeting. So again, thank you for accommodating us in this manner. We've done a couple over the last couple weeks, and they seem to work pretty well. The other big change, though, are the deliverables, what we issue to the village, and of course there's civil financial statements. And I'm not going to walk through those unless anybody has specific questions. But the other report that we issue looks considerably different. This is the one that the three of us are going to walk through, and it's reporting and insights on the 2019 audit. Does everybody have that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to hit on a few pages, and like I said, before we'll end up going through the numbers, the graphs, which are at the end of this, which highlight things in the financial statements. As we go through it, if you have I can hear you all pretty well there. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to stop any of us and ask, or you can wait till the end. It really doesn't matter. But you've always asked questions in the past, so I want to encourage you to do that, despite the format that we're working through here. So it's a pretty colorful document. It was a firm-wide effort to revamp this. It used to be called the internal control letter, referred to as a management letter. It's got all that same language in there. It's just in a much more readable format. And it's been very well received, and it's, like I said, what our firm has done throughout the country to try to create some consistency with this document. So if you could first turn to page 5, and if you're looking at a PDF, it's a PDF page 5, or a paper copy of the PDF page 5 as well. This gets at the audit objectives, and I'm not going to walk you through these, but I think quite often there's a misunderstanding of what an audit entails, and anytime something goes wrong, you hear people say, we want an audit. They really probably want is more of an examination or a fraud kind of forensic type of procedures being done. An audit in most situations is what we have done for the village and we do every year. we fulfill these different things that are laid out here in the top 2/3 of this page, so that ultimately we can issue an opinion on your financial statements, whether or not they're prepared according to the accounting rules or GAAP. And that's important because that's what is required for external financial reporting for granting agencies, for banks, whenever you issue debt, a few different things. So that's what we're doing during this, during these services. And then at the bottom, there's also the manager's responsibility. And it's, even though you're not preparing the financial statements, you're preparing the numbers that then feed into the financial statements. The middle point in there is really critical that you are working on maintaining good internal control.
You still there, John? Nope, he's going back. You back, John?
I'm back, I apologize.
All right.
Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I apologize for that. I'm actually calling from my mother's place up in Washington Island. We got stuck here today because the ferries weren't running. There's such a raging storm out there, so I don't have the best reception. Can you hear me okay though?
Yeah, we're
Yes.
good.
Okay, good. I'll try to speed it up. Okay, so that's page 5, talking about what our responsibilities are in the villages. If you turn to page 9, this gets at how do we go about doing it? What is our audit approach? And it's really focusing on those key transaction areas, such as how do you process payroll, accounts payable, collect taxes, all those really important things that feed into the majority of the numbers in your financial statements. Most of that was done when we were out there for prelim last winter. And then when we went back in early March, that's when we're auditing those numbers. And we have some assurance that controls are functioning so that we can rely upon some of those numbers being reported to us. Of course, we're still doing some standard procedures like confirmations and things like that. But that's in a nutshell how the audit is working. We did issue a modified or clean opinion on the financial statements again this year. That's really important. And there are a couple new accounting standards or rules implemented. The first is 84, your tax collection fund, where all the taxes that you collect for the December and the first couple months of the next year are flowing through. Looks different in your financial statements this year. There's like an income statement, basically collections and disbursements out to those districts. And another one that's 88, is the 88, which requires some additional debt disclosures. All right, if you turn to page 11, this is getting at the internal controls again. And so these points, I think, are pretty consistent with what we have did to the village in the past. There's basically a segregation of duties comment in the top third there, that just because of the limitation of staff, you cannot adequately segregate all the different functions of the village. It's just not feasible unless you went out and hired additional people, and that's not what we're recommending. But as auditors, we're still required to point this out to you. Then we also prepared your financial statement for that financial statement close process. I say this to you every year, but that's in almost all of our reports because it's a service that we provide to a lot of governments. Just the complexity and everything, it would be hard for a government to do one a year, and we do so many. And then on the next page, page 12, these are some more specific items. Again, segregation of duties issues, one in there over utility billing, payroll. The one that's maybe not segregation of duties is that last one, the IT comments, working towards proactive restorations of data. It is backed up, but ideally those would get restored periodically to make sure the integrity of that data is maintained, and I think that's something that the village is working on, working towards. Ryan, do you want to touch on those next two comments? They're utility related?
Sure, yeah. So we had 2 prior year comments for the utilities. The first one there, as you can see, on the sewer redemption account, basically when you've issued clean water fund loans in those loan agreements, there's a requirement that you set aside an account and deposit into it monthly, that portion of the next principal and interest payment to be made, so that by the time they're due, all the funds have been set aside to make those payments back on the Clean Water Fund loan. All of that has been done in the past. And last year, the payments were made out of the operating account and then reimbursed from this segregated restricted account, which is totally fine. Last year, when that was done, the Clean Water Fund redemption account hadn't reimbursed the operating account at that time. So basically, there were additional funds last year that were restricted for use that didn't really need to be. And that, that's probably better than the other way around of not having the funds in there to pay your loan. So, but nonetheless, you obviously want your funds that don't need to be restricted available for use. So we had that comment in there, and we looked at the balances this year, and everything was back to normal. So that's considered closed. And then on the next page, on 13, we have a comment on sewer rate reviews. Basically, every year, there's a report called the Compliance Maintenance Annual Report that's submitted to the DNR of Wisconsin. And within that report, there's a checkbox or requirement that says that you've looked at rates every 2 years. And depending on your answer, it goes to impact what grade you get for the sewer utility. And as you can see, we haven't done a full-on review since 2015. So we have this rolling recommendation in here from the prior years, just to make sure that rates are being reviewed, and you can check that box essentially. So, but as I'll discuss towards the end of this report, the sewer utility is really in pretty good shape financially. So those are the two for utilities.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so if you turn to page 18, this page gets at some of the accounting standards for the GASB that are up and coming for the village. And the biggest one on here is GASB 87, which is pertaining to leases. For some governments, maybe not so much for the village, depending how active you are with leases. This is going to be a lot of work. That's the bad news. The good news is, because of the current situation, just last week, GASB passed GASB 95, and what that did is a lot of governments, because of COVID-19 and all the challenges going on, to delay implementation of all these standards for a year, and actually 87 for another year and a half. So I think it's going to be 21, 22 until the village will have to implement that. But this page and the next page gives you some high-level information on what those standards are about. And then on page 21, and the next several pages, I won't walk you through these obviously, but here's some kind of informative comments, just things that are relevant to, maybe not everything in the village, but hopefully some of these would be, that, throughout the country, our firm is finding governments are really focusing on. So just read those if you're interested, and there's some hyperlinks in here too that give you some additional references and information. Okay, so then if we go down to page 40, let's get this into the graph. So these are a little bit formatted a little bit differently than the graph you've seen in the past, but not that much, and they still have some comparatives and things on there. I'm going to talk about the next two, focusing on fund balance. I'll turn it over to Cameron to talk about debt. And this is focusing on fund balance of the general fund, which, as you know, is your primary operating fund of the village. Take a look at where it's at, or where it's been for the last 2 years. So that graph at the top of page 40 lays it out as far as the green being 2019, black 2018. And in governmental funds, you can have up to 5 different categories of fund balance, and the village has 3. And So I'm gonna work from the bottom up on these, and touching on non-spendable first. So you can see it's 528,000 at the end of 2019. This is just like it sounds, non-spendable are things that GAAP requires you to set aside because they're just not available. Most of the 481,000 of the 528 is made up of advances, as we call it, or loans to other funds. 118,000 is still owed back to the general fund from TIP 2. That was 180 last year, so that's been going down steadily as increment sharing has been allowed for the last several years from TIP 1 then to TIP 2, and TIP 2 they have to pay this back to the general fund. So that's going in the right direction. But the other big share of this is from the ambulance fund, and that's up to 362,000 this year that owes back to the general fund, up from 258,000 last year. So it's about, in total, it's about a quarter, about 20% of your total fund investment. Then I'd be restricted or committed in there. You have 542 assigned, and before I jump through those, I'm going to move up to unassigned. Unassigned is $1,440,000, and this is based upon a calculated amount per the village's fund balance policy. So the next page is going to highlight that your max amount is 40% of next year's budgeted expenditures. So 2020 budgeted expenditures, 40% of that gets you to $1,440,000. Anything above and beyond that is at the determination of management put towards an assigned amount for future capital purposes. So that 542,000 that's been assigned, 219,000 of it is for capital. And this is all laid out within the financial statements on page 50, all the detail of this. But you have $219,000 that you can apply towards future capital needs to reduce borrowing or purchase equipment or whatever that is needed. I work with several villages that take the same approach. It works very well over the long term, and it's been a good intended purpose of these funds. Another portion of it is for the amount that comes over from the water fund, the payment in lieu of tax or pilot, $225,000. And then there's some small amounts that have been set aside for the police department, the terrorist street program, and a couple of others. Again, those are all on page 50.
Page 50, what all is up? There's no page.
50 on the financial statement, the other book. Yep.
We're not, I mean, I'm gonna on this stuff.
So your general fund is in very good shape. You can see in the middle of this page here, still on page 40, summarized income statement. So revenues came in about 193,000 more than budgeted. And that was driven primarily by investment income being over budget. And we see that everywhere this year. 2019, the market was solid, and governments generally budget conservatively, so that came in over budget. There's an insurance dividend that came in, some intergovernmental revenue. So when you combine all those different factors, like I said, $193,000 over budget for revenues. And then on the expenditures, you were $301,000 under. And while there certainly were some that are over and under, again, they're driven primarily in the risk management area and police. So we combine those two different areas, about 260,000 of that 301 variance is apart from those two.
John, I have a, is it John?
Yep.
About 173,000.
John, right?
Came in about
John?
21 over.
John?
So that's what caused it. Yes.
John Duffy has a question.
I'm back on the board. I'm new this term, and looking at the amounts you just talked about, the unassigned versus the non-spendable amounts, the unassigned, which is the 1,440,000 and 658, that non-spent stuff, it seems like where the money's being taken to fund the ambulance or the other TIF, if that money was not utilized for that, that would be assigned to the unassigned amount, correct?
That is correct, but now
Okay.
with the village's new policy, it would roll up into that capital. Because
Okay.
the intention is to max out the unassigned at 40%.
Okay. And I guess the other question would be for you,
It would shift into the assigned portion.
Okay. The question would be, you talked about in that same area as the non-spendable, you said in 18, the ambulance was 258,000 that was loaned, then it moved up this year, 362. Now, to me, it looks like the budget's higher than we're able to afford. We're just borrowing money, kind of we're paying ahead, or borrowing ahead, and not really catching up. And I know that's one of the questions I sent to Nick, is that we're showing a deficit later on, and one of the questions I had too is like 219,000 that the ambulance fund.
229, yep.
229 is what's owed. So we're running behind. At what point do you say, well, wait a minute, we got to start looking at potentially operational things? Because if that gap continues, then is that considered a problem, or should be looked at from the elected body?
Yeah, that's a great question. And because the general fund does have a strong fund balance, it's able to help out these other funds. But that's not sustainable at the rate that the ambulance fund has been going for the last couple of years. So it's important to keep in mind that governmental operations, not to focus just on the current year results, but trends. And so looking at the ambulance fund over the last several years will start to give you an idea of, how did it get here, and is there like an anomaly or something that's driving this that's going to turn it around? Because it would not be sustainable over the long run. Right now, it's not really a concern, because your general fund, like I said, it is strong, and that is one of the purposes. Now, if TIP was leaning on it even more so, you would, that would be a concern. I think there's a balloon payment coming up for TIP 2, which will cause that to bump again, but the projections are that it's going to be able to recover all of its costs, which is good. So it is something to pay attention to get to the your question, because it's different if it's a capital need at one time, but if it's an operational loss, which I believe have been.
Absolutely.
I'd have to go back and look at historical.
No, they're definitely operational.
But if it's operational, then that's something that the village would want to pay attention to.
Correct, because typically your unassigned is the one-time deals, as you said, and then operational cost is typically not the place where you want to do that, and that's why I see a gap. I see a little bit of a trend. I don't know what the previous years were, but I see a little bit of gap, and then at some point, the board may have to have a discussion, potentially, but not right now, but I was
Yep.
concerned with that gap starting to creep up, or that amount creeping up.
And maybe, John, I'll interject here, this is Nick. Yeah, and that's the plan, I think, is, and I've talked to Jake about this, we'll have a discussion. We've had several discussions prior to you being on the board about this, and we've seen the trend and we've made some adjustments. We've done the per capita, we've looked at the transport service, I have some other numbers I can share with you after we're done with this. But we certainly are looking at what we need to do, and I think the understanding, at least that I have for the last couple of years being involved in it, is it really, I think, and we can end this discussion shortly then, John, but the transport service really is not causing the problem. It's simply that we went from 3 people to 4 people to 6 people over the last 10 years, and we've never really adjusted our revenues for it. So we need to look at that and come up with a plan. And we've started adjusting the per capita to help shorten that gap a little bit. And then, we're having a great year, and then the COVID happened, and we lost, and I've got those numbers to show you later. But, John, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, John, from, I got 2 Johns in the room, so John on the phone.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it right there.
All right, thank you.
Great question. Let's move on to the next page. So when we take that unassigned fund balance and we map it out over the last 5 years as a percentage of next year's expenditures, just like the village's policy, you can see by that green line where it's been going. So it's right at that 40% this year. The black line above is the max, and the orangish line down below at 30% is the minimum. So you've been right in between there for the last 5 years, which is really good. The blue dots on there are other places that we audit in Wisconsin of similar size and where they plot out. So you can see you're pretty much, you're right where a lot of other places are, actually. And so I think places have generally tried to bring their fund balance up a little bit. And considering the current environment that COVID-19 and everything that we're all dealing with now, governments that have done this, a little bit more prepared or positioned to weather kind of the storm that we're going through here. So it gives you flexibility in budgeting to have a strong fund balance, deal with specific issues like this, and also to maintain a consistent tax rate from years is important too. Any questions on that graph?
No.
Good shape. If not, I'm going to turn it over to Cameron the next couple of pages to talk about debt.
Thanks, John. Start off with that, the village has been staying in relatively steady position on overall percentage of debt limit. Debt limit is calculated at 5% of the equalized value. And that does not include revenue debt issued by the utility. Why that is important to keep in mind is for financing future operations. GO debt, you are capped at 5% of your equalized value.
Still there, Cameron? John? Lose them all.
I didn't hear you next. Did we lose Cameron?
Yeah.
Yeah, we only got two on here. Ryan, you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
All right, we'll wait for him to call back.
Okay.
Is he on Washington Island too?
Not that I know of. Heard a click.
He's probably still talking to us. He's not calling back yet, John. I don't know if you want to move on to something else for now, or?
I was gonna say I could jump over to water utility quick if that makes sense.
Sure.
Why don't we do that? Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
All right, so on page 44, we've got a page for each utility, so I'll go through water first here. At the top of the page, we have calculated the actual rate of return. So, as I'm sure you're aware, water utilities in Wisconsin are
Ryan.
highly regulated.
Ryan, I'm going to cut you off. I got to answer. Cameron's calling back. Cameron, are you back with us?
I'm back. Sorry about that. I don't know if John or Ryan started to fill in. John, did you add anything yet?
Yeah, Ryan started filling, but Cameron, why don't you finish up on the debt?
Awesome. Again, like I was mentioning, that the debt of the city is made up of two significant portions, one being GO debt, the other being revenue debt. With a vast majority of the city's GO debt being made up of funds borrowed by governmental funds. That amount is $5,060,000 of regular GO debt and a new category this year of $350,382 called either direct placement or direct borrowing. And that just simply means that the debt that was taken out by the village didn't go to a marketplace to be bid. And that was as a result of accounting standard GAB B88 that the village implemented this year. Ryan, did you want to touch on the utility debt? I can jump in the utility stuff when on page 44. All right. Moving on to page 43 of your packet, when we're looking at debt service, it has a comparison to non-capital expenditure. You'll see kind of the trend starting from 2015 moving to 2019, that the village has spent less and less of a proportion of expenditures the debt service. And that has been a result of really good debt management by the city, or by the village, sorry. On to you, Ryan.
All right, the one thing I'll add one thing, this is John, sorry, just before you jump in there, Ryan, on the page here, the debt service and non-capital, again, these black dots on here are data points of places that we are, again, on similar size, so even though you're a little bit above those other ones, really low 20% is considered where you generally want to be, and that will vary widely from place to place, especially if you've got active TIFs, and you do have a couple of TIFs that are paying down debt. So, as well as an RDA, TDA, there's a lot of different factors. Like Cameron said, the most important thing here is to make sure that you're managing that debt so it's not fluctuating a lot from year to year. And the village does that. They also work with municipal advisors, others to make sure that that happens too. So it looks good. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, sounds good. We'll jump into water utility again on page 44. So as I was mentioning, water utilities in Wisconsin are regulated by the Public Service Commission. So one of the main things that they look at when determining rates and looking at ongoing performance through annual reporting is what's called the rate of return. And basically what that is, it's the amount of income that you can earn as a percentage of your net capital assets. So when you go in for a rate study, they authorize you a certain percentage based on where you're at capital wise. And then on an ongoing basis, every year they look at what your actual rate of return is on an ongoing basis. As you can see, the utilities are authorized at a 6.5% rate of return right now. I know utilities going in for rate cases are being authorized somewhere around the 5%. So that's actually good. And as you can see, your actual rate for both this year and last year is just above your authorized rate. So in 2019, you were down slightly, and this fluctuates based on mostly on maintenance expenses throughout the year. So I believe there were a couple of significant water main breaks that had to be tended to in 2019 that drove up your operating costs slightly, but even then still above your authorized rate. And I know we don't have back to 15, at least for the rate percentage, but just looking at the graph, I can tell that things are consistent and your rates are working as designed to cover your operating costs here. So I would say from a rate perspective, you're looking good. The second item we have in here is unrestricted reserves. And we calculate this as a month of cash that you have on hand to cover your operating costs. And I think with everything going on, it's becoming a more and more relevant calculation or something to look at. Basically, what it's saying is if your revenues shut off, how much cash do you have on hand to cover operations in terms of months? So the GFOA typically recommends a minimum of 3 months cash on hand plus any routine capital additions that need to be covered. Typically what we recommend to our utility clients is somewhere between 6 and 9 months on hand. And as you can see in 2019, you're sitting at 10. So I would say from a cash perspective too, just looking at unrestricted cash, great position there. The third one is debt coverage. Based on your Clean Water Fund loans, within those you're required to your operating revenues. It looks at the calculation of you have to cover 125% of your annual debt service for the year. So looking at this trend, you're actually almost double where you're required to be, which is great. And then lastly, on the bottom here, invested in capital is something that we look at because utilities are so capital intensive. We like to look at how much of that capital is funded through equity and rates versus debt. Typically, what we recommend is having that debt ratio of 50% or less. And what that does is if costs increase in the future or you have big projects in the future that you need to raise rates for, having that ability to come back and borrow debt rather than raise rates for those projects is great because you don't have to, it smooths out the impact of what you have to do rate-wise in the future and just gives you more flexibility. So overall, I'd say the water utility had another strong year and things are looking good. On page 45, the sewer utility is not regulated in the same sense as water, so we don't have the rate of return. On the front top chart, we like to also look at operating revenues versus expenses. And as you can see, clearly your revenues are sufficient right now to cover what your operating costs are, including depreciation on your assets. So I think we'll look at the unrestricted reserve, again, the same recommendation. In 2019, you're at a full year of cash on hand to cover operations, which is great. On debt coverage, you'll see quite a big jump this year, from 3.55 to 10.64. And the reason for that is one of your two Clean Water Fund loans was paid off in 2018. So that requirement for 2019, I think the debt service dropped by well over 50%. So that's why you're seeing a jump in your debt coverage and also your cash on hand for 2019.
Ryan, this is Nick. If I may interject for a second, I just wanted to point out to the board, because it's very timely. We just talked about it last week. If you look at 2017, you'll notice the expenses jumped significantly. That was a year we had a true-up from the sewer plant. It was a wet year prior. We paid $540,000 that year for wastewater treatment. I mentioned we budget $400. It's normally between $300 and $400. That was a year it jumped up to $540. We're going to see that same uptick for 2020 at next year's audit. That's all, Ryan.
Okay, thanks. And then lastly, on the last page here, your stormwater utility revenues stay pretty flat, and that's a fixed fee for the most part. There's not really a variable component on stormwater revenues, so as you can see, cost of actually gone up in 2019, but your unrestricted reserves, you're sitting at 21 months, so cash on hand is very strong, and the stormwater utility doesn't have any debt currently, so it's all funded through rates. That was all I had for the utilities. No questions on the utilities, Ryan?
Do you know what's driving up those stormwater costs, I guess, since last year, or you didn't?
Yeah, I can answer it. Last year, we did purchase the street sweeper. I don't know how that all played out in the audit, but that definitely was an increased cost. I didn't look at it too much more than that. But Ryan, I don't know if you can shed any light on that uptick on the stormwater side. The other reason I'll add to that too is as Ryan just mentioned, we do not have a borrow in the stormwater utility. If you recall, the last few capital projects we've done, we've paid cash on hand for all of them. So as we start doing that, you start seeing that uptick a little bit. I don't know if you want to add anything, Ryan?
Nick, I was just looking through the accounts here, and, the big expense for this year that was driving it up was, there was a yard drain and some boring.
Yep, so that would be, strictly the operational side, the stormwater, so if you recall our stormwater lateral policy, you remember the name Dan Leal, Marco Street?
Yep.
That, we spent quite a bit of money last year on stormwater lateral, so that was probably, normally we didn't spend the full $10,000 or $20,000 on that, last year we did.
Okay,
Yeah, it was about 12,000.
Okay.
okay. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Questions for the three of us?
Is there any general questions?
Anybody have any questions for a gentleman on the phone from
I guess-
McKinley, or?
I'll just
Mike?
throw one out there, just from page 18, it'll probably for Nick. You know, you said some of these due dates were extended out. Does this affect the village much? We don't have much releases, and is there gonna be a lot of work for us?
We don't have a lot of leases. I don't know, John, the only question I have about that, the lease requirement, does that include the CDA lease?
It would if there was a monetary value to it, but now that those lease revenue bonds have been paid off, I don't think that the gas would be picking that amount up.
Okay, so the only thing that, I mean, really at this point, I don't know, we have a lease for some printers. I mean, other than that, we really don't do many leases.
How about for 89 and 91? Is there gonna be much work on you and our staff, your staff, for the other two calling changes?
Not, John, the question about 89 and 91 for gas fee requirements, about increased requirements for staff, I don't see those as being too much of, it's probably more work for you guys, but not as much for us.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I don't believe the village has been involved with conduit debt.
No, not
in the past. And 89, that would be relevant, for the village, for the utility funds, if it was, capitalizing interest. That probably hasn't been the case for a while. I don't know, you know that off the top of your head, Ryan, but this is one of those GASBs, it's a rarity, but it actually takes away a requirement. A lot of places would fail to remember to do this because it just doesn't happen that often. And so the adjustments and such it is now, which is basically says you just need to expense that like you would any other interest payment.
So it sounds like no.
So as that looks right now-
The other thing to consider is if the village owns is the lessor in these situations. We see that with governments, you know, leasing farmland or timber or whatever it may be, periodically, so that's, in that case, you're gonna pick up a new asset. But I don't know if the village does that.
No, we do not.
So it looks like that this new changes won't put much of a burden on
Does-
village staff at all, so, okay,
No.
thank you.
John Duffy, you had some?
Question for you, John, on page 49, in the government activities, says add unspent bond proceeds. I take it that's money that's left over from projects and money that's borrowed. What is that typically then utilized, or what are the options? Would one of the options be is just pay that towards the bond, or just put that in the fund balance? How is that? Am I wrong on that, or could you explain that to me?
Yeah, unspent bond proceeds are an amount that get calculated, like you mentioned, I'm trying to catch up here, but it's page 49. Yeah, as far as the net investment in capital assets, you guys see it. But this is what the village has typically done for a lot of years. They've issued debt that then meet their capital needs for a couple of years and ongoing street projects and such. So there's only, the IRS really, you know, sets up the rules as far as what can and cannot be done with this. Usually there's about it depends a little bit, but about a three-year spend down requirement, or you could potentially be subject to arbitrage. A couple of my clients do pay arbitrage every year just because they issue a lot of debt every year. what they don't want you to do is issue debt and then make money on it by investing it. But the village has always spent down the proceeds, from over the next, usually it's 2 years.
Can I add to that?
Actually, is that what's going on now this summer, is completing some projects with these, Nick?
Yeah, so I was just gonna add to that too. So basically, John, you're probably aware, we do 2-year borrows for all our capital, so we borrow $1.5 million, and that's a portion that's left for 2020 projects. And then when we look at our 2021, 2022 borrow, late in 2021, if there's unspent funds left from this borrow, so say we only have $600,000, we have $29,000 left, we would usually look at our total cost for the next borrow, subtract that amount, and borrow only the amount we need.
Got it.
That's usually how we approach it.
All right, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, John and Cameron and Ryan, thanks for your time and thanks for your audit. It's too bad we didn't get to see your faces this year. And Ryan, you lucked out because this is the first year you were going to join us, and now you get to do it over the phone. So maybe we'll have to bring you back next year.
I was there last year, I think.
Oh, were you? I don't recall. I thought we were going to. Okay, I'm sorry.
Everyone always forgets the utilities.
All right, yeah, again, thanks, John and Cameron and Ryan, for joining us tonight. Appreciate you walking us through this and explaining. So thanks again, for always keeping the good tabs on the village and doing a good job for us and working well. I know you guys work well with our staff, so we appreciate you guys doing a nice job.
John just pinged me, I think his call dropped again, but I'll just jump in, we want to thank the staff and the accounting department too. A lot of people sometimes look at audits as us coming in and doing a bunch of work, but really, it's your own staff that are responding to all of our requests. And we're just really checking to make sure things are done right, so it's 2 ways. We really appreciate working with everyone over there, and it's a pretty great relationship, I think, from our perspective, so thank you very much too.
Appreciate it. Anything
Thank
else,
you.
Nick, or?
No.
All right. All right, well, you guys have a good evening. Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, just to follow up with maybe the question about the ambulance service, I'll just hand this over. We don't have to talk about it too much tonight. Like I said, I just talked to Jake today again to kind of plan when Jake's here.
Thank you.
Sometime in the near future
Thank you.
to talk about this. But this is just an example, just to kind of talk about, if you look at the left side, that's the 502, that's a transport service, and he's tracked this since kind of it's back in January of 2018. And you can look, if you just kind of real quickly look at the last few months from say October, starting in October, but you look at November, December, January, February, you look at that left column of how much the amounts they billed out for that service. And then you see March and April. And that's, March obviously is when COVID happened, in March 22nd or so. And then you look at number of runs in April was 5 transports. Now, I just talked to Jake today, they're up to 50 total, that's total for both services, runs already this month. So service is picking back up. Elective surgeries are happening, those transports are picking back up. So I think the next time we review this, in the future here, it's gonna look better than it has the last couple of times we reviewed it, as far as the transport service specifically. But as I mentioned during that discussion, as I've mentioned in this discussion in the past, is that transport service had really been, kind of real close to breaking even, maybe making a little money every 3 months, maybe losing a little money every 3 months. And then we talked about all the other variables that go along with that. We have staff here for fire calls. We have more part-time staff here to cover 500 shifts. There's always those benefits to that service. I think it had been going in really good for 3 or 4 months. So I do think that, we talk about this again with more specifics with Jake in the room. I think we'll see that is going to be a helpful service to have. But at this point, I think we'll just pause and hold on to that discussion until Jake's available. I mean,
John.
yeah, go ahead.
Nick, could you ask him to put in there, it's telling the total charges, but in the ambulance service, there's write-offs because you only get certain amount. This is just telling us what we're charging. This is not telling us what we're actually clearing because there are write-offs that come in with this thing because they're not gonna allow certain things. So could we get that for next meeting?
It's on here. It's not on this sheet I gave you. There's more to this spreadsheet that he gave me.
Okay.
And I just simply printed this for tonight, just to kind of show the numbers. But it, like I said, we'll get that to you when, he has it all documented on the bottom of this sheet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mike, well,
I'm gonna follow up on John's question, maybe just even a request when Jake does come on, at one of the meetings, I'd like to see a graph, let's say, if we're still trending, debt going up or coming down. I know he has it listed here, total for the year, let's say we can have a graph for the last 5 years. Let's say if we're going in the right direction on even 5 months, you say 502, you think we're gonna be okay?
Yep, and I guess, maybe I should have provided this document tonight, that he has all that information that will provide when we make that discussion in much more detail. I just thought this would be helpful for the board to at least see where those numbers were trending.
And it will be helpful, but just let him know, because sometimes information
Yep.
isn't always that
Yeah.
clear, so
Got it.
I'd like to see that, if we're turning a corner, I'd like to see that.
Yep.
Or you said we might have to adjust the rates or something for what we charge for our services.
Yeah,
I know we
which
changed
we just
the
did,
budget,
but yeah, the per capita, we talked about that would likely see a small increase again, we gotta trend that upwards and then, yes, I think this transport service will help out.
all right. Does anybody else have any questions on the ambulance stats that were provided? And you need action on this item.
We do, yep.
All right, so regarding the 2019 financial audit, what is the board's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2019 financial audit.
I get a second?
I'll second.
Got a motion by Horning, second by Duffy to approve the 2019 financial audit. Are there any other questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Discussion and possible action on COVID-19 and village operations.
All right, so I got a number of things to talk about here. I did hand out a sheet, pile of papers on your desk. I gotta find my pile. So the first one was kind of just a real rough outline of what I wanted to talk about tonight. If you all have that, it says COVID-19 village operations update. Just kind of walk us through, just at least so I can keep track of where we're going. So the first large item of discussion, I guess, is gonna be the pool tonight. And if you go to the very next page, it's 3 pages stapled together, 4 pages stapled together. I just kind of, Lori's here tonight. Lori and I talked quite a bit. We've been talking quite a bit about this over the past, several weeks. The real challenge becoming with the pool is that we're at a point now where we're getting so close to where we normally would open. We have no idea what opening might look like. We kind of have an idea. And we have lifeguards that are finding other jobs because they're not sure if the pool's going to be open. That's happening all over the state. And alongside that, at the same time, you also have new restrictions being imposed on the pool and half the capacity, likely 6-foot distancing, 2 extra people having to work to watch people to make sure they're social distancing correctly, and a myriad of other things that Lori could add to. And the concern being that we're not sure when that might happen. And then you add in the first page of this, looking at the actual budget portion of it. So on the left side, you'll see that the current budget, that's what we budget basically in every year, is we budget, it's $48,000 in the facilities budget, that's the DPW's portion of the budget. And then the recreational side of the budget of $56,995 for 2020, that's, the lifeguards, and I have those budgets attached here. That's the expense. Then we have the revenues that we make. We make about $27,000 in pool fees a year and selling, family passes and people to pay to get in the pool, along with $6,500 in concessions. So in a normal year in 2020, if we were to open in normal circumstances, we'd lose about $71,000. That's how much it costs to provide that service to our community. I don't look at it, I guess, as a loss. I said loss, but, in reality, we're providing a service to the community it's about $71,000 to do so. Given the current circumstances and adding 2 extra people working all the time and probably drastically decreasing the amount of people that can use the pool, along with family passes. I don't think we would even attempt to sell, because we don't want to sell somebody a family pass that we have no idea if it'll even be valid in 2 months, you know, just based on that question that's out there. I suspect that if we were to open the pool, this 71,000 would be increased, because we wouldn't see the revenue we normally would see. The cost to operate the pool would increase some, but not significantly, just to have those 2 extra people. But we're really gonna probably see a decrease in revenues. So with that being said, you go to the other side, you know, the right side of that piece of paper, and that's kind of the projection without opening the pool. And that is further explained if you look at the next 2 pages. Those are those 2 budgets I referred to. The first one being the recreational portion of it, and I've highlighted in yellow what we really wouldn't spend. Those things highlighted in yellow would be complete savings. They wouldn't be spent at all. We wouldn't have to pay for temporary wages and concession supplies and those types of things. And the second page being gas and electric would be significantly down, water would be significantly down, sewer and the chemicals would really be significantly down. So looking at those 2 scenarios, it looks like not opening the pool, it would cost approximately $30,000. Opening the pool, I'm gonna say, is probably gonna cost $80,000 to $90,000 with the reduced revenue. That's just an estimate at this point. So that's part of the equation. But the other part, the larger part of the equation, is really the uncertainty and not knowing and really giving, at this point, we're not even sure that we'd have enough guards if we said we're gonna open June 15th, pick a date, and we're not sure that we would have enough guards to do that. I feel like we could probably make it happen. At the same time, I don't think we want to be in a position to say we might open on July 1st. For that, because of those guards and being, you know, at least honest with them, saying, you know, we're not sure, they're probably going to find other jobs. So with this all said, I think we need to make a decision as a board. The board has to make a decision on what we want to do. I think the more and more we talk about it, and Lori, you know, as a pool manager, and we talk about it internally here, we just feel like maybe the best decision this year is to not open the pool. And I know that hurts all of us to think that way, and you know, because I think that would be, with everything that's going on, having something like that to do would be great. But all the uncertainty surrounding it right now, it's really hard to make that decision, and I don't think we can not make the decision for some time. We can't wait till June 15th to make this decision. It needs to be done. Whatever we're gonna decide to do, I think needs to be done soon.
Laura, do you know what the other folks in the Fond du Lac County are doing? Are any of the pools opening?
Right at the moment, the only pool they're gonna try opening in Fond du Lac County is Taylor Pool. The aquatic center, the indoor pool at the YMCA. We'll know Wednesday afternoon for sure about the YMCA. As far as the facility's probably gonna open, but the pool probably will not be opening.
Okay.
Taylor Pool, last I heard, they're going to try and open it. They definitely won't be opening the county pool this year, mostly because of staffing, because of the same thing. A month ago, I had a Zoom meeting with all my lifeguards, and I basically said, I don't know what to tell you. I have a great staff, and they're very dedicated, but I had to be honest and say, most of these kids are working summer jobs for college reasons. Find another job. If you need to find another job, don't hold out. Now, I know if I called them today and said, hey, we're gonna open on June 10th, they'd be there for me in a capacity, maybe not full-time, maybe part-time. But I also can't say to them, we open June 10th and come August 1st, we don't have to shut down again. And I feel like that would be very hard on them. And I just feel like I owe them an answer now. I feel like I can't hold them off. And it kills me to think about not opening the pool this summer. But when you look at everything combined, the restrictions of, we would have to have somebody in the splash pad at all times. That is one of the requirements. Now, we built that splash pad because we didn't have to have an extra guard, but we have to have somebody in there to keep people 6 feet apart from one another. We would have to have one person hired that is not a lifeguard, strictly to keep crowds of 10 or more people separated on the pool deck and to sanitize every half hour. Which, that's fine, but I would almost need an adult to go do that, because you know as well as I do, trying to separate crowds of 10 or more, but they can be family members, so if they say they're in the same family, then it's okay. I would have to have an adult in there doing that, because you know as well as I do, there's gonna be confrontation at some point. The other thing they're requiring is the max capacity on our pool would be 50%. I would not be comfortable selling season passes, because what if our season only lasts 4 weeks? Then people are gonna want their money back, and that's not fair. They will not allow any pool toys. So if you wanna take a ball and play with it, you can play with it, but you can't pass it to the person across from you. So I would have to take down the basketball hoop. And then I would have to have guards worrying about that above and beyond what they're supposed to worry about. And that's all in consideration. Like I said, it just, I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen, it's being painted, the resurfacing's done, it's being filled with water right now. I want to open more than anything, but I just think all in all, it's not fair to the staff there to have to worry about whether or not they're gonna have a job for the full summer, whether or not they're gonna have complaints about the social distancing and having to manage and deal with that social distancing for the summer. So, no matter how hard it is for me to say it, I think it is gonna be our best option.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anybody have any questions regarding, Mike?
Just got a quick question. I shouldn't say a quick question, but you talked about all these restrictions that have been put in place for pools. Are they gonna be relooked at again let's say in 30 days or 15 days? I mean, these restrictions just come out?
They came from the CDC, which were passed on from Fond du Lac County Health Department. So I am going to guess, because they came straight from the county health department, I don't picture anything changing unless the government would get to the Badger bounce back plan of being in phase 3 where there's no restrictions. Because even though Fond du Lac County supposedly has no restrictions, CDC still has guidelines, and we're still following those guidelines. If they were to say to me, you know what, by June 15th, we're gonna be in phase 3, and I don't have to have restrictions on the pool, that was my dream. That was my hope and my, even if we got to phase 2 where we would limit 50 people in the pool at a time and not have to worry about the 6 foot apart, I had a plan to make that work. We were gonna have 2-hour increments where people signed up, and once 50 people were signed up, then you had to go to the next 2-hour time slot. We had that all planned and worked out, but unfortunately, that's not the way it worked. You know what I mean? That's not the way it worked. And again, I don't know that I can make the staff wait much longer without giving them a definite, and that's hard. When most of these people, it's just a 3-month job for them.
But I would agree we can't hold, I mean, again, you wouldn't expect anybody to wait for us, but
Right.
was there any talk about shrinking the hours? I mean, I know that, that would help maybe reduce some of the costs. I mean, if we did open up with all these restrictions, reduce the hours, and maybe we could bring some of our costs down a little bit,
It was discussed a little bit. It wouldn't. I mean, you still have the chemical costs, you still have the heating costs. There's certain costs that it would actually be worse, because now you're not getting revenue for 3 days a week, but you still have to treat the water and everything. So I don't think it would probably cost more.
I think staffing is our biggest cost here.
It is,
You know,
yeah.
I'm just thinking out loud here. I don't disagree. You're in a hard spot here, and we don't want to hold anybody back from trying to make some money during the summertime. Does that decision have to be made tonight?
I would like to do it. I put it this weekend, over the last 3-4 days, I've gotten about 7 phone calls from guards. They need to know. I mean, they really need an answer, one way or another. They all want to work, don't get me wrong. But I just feel there's so much pressure, there'll be so much more added pressure to them about the guidelines. As far as hours go, Nick is 100% right. Now, if we would have been to phase 2 where we could have 50 people and we did 2-hour time slots, I was gonna increase our hours. Because number one, you can't have swimming lessons at all, that's completely out of the question. So now that that would open our morning up, and we had in our mind, maybe we'll open at 11 instead of 1, and we'll do 2-hour time slots the whole day long, we'll figure it out. But now that how do you keep good people 6 feet apart? I just don't know how. And I know that no matter where you are, you're supposed to do that at Walmart, you're supposed to do that at Pick and Save, and who's there policing it, but the pool's a little different. It's held to a different standard. The health department shows up all the time. And I can't have my guards worried about that night and day. You know what I mean? It's their job for the safety of the kids. That's why I would literally have to hire one adult to be there, to kind of be that person, to make sure that's happening. That's how I feel about it anyways.
Thank you, Larry.
John?
Lori kind of answered my question a little bit, but I was going to ask Nick, you're talking about potential funding for COVID expenses, and here's an expense, we're trying to debate, do we open it or we don't? One of the biggest concerns, people wanting to work at the pool, but listening to you, the question would be, would we get enough lifeguards because of the restrictions on it? Is it going to be of value to the kids and adults? And it's hard, with listening to you, no, because there's gonna be more in their mind, wondering, okay, they're not a part, what do you do if that happens? Is that gonna create more problems? I would love to open it, but is there funding available for these types of situations?
I would be very surprised if FEMA would allow funding for something like this, kind of sort of an elective type opening, it's not really a necessity for COVID-19. But even at that, I think the larger concern we have, it's only a portion of it, the funding, that's a portion of the decision in my eyes. The larger question is the staffing, and that's why, like Lori said, that's why the aquatic center is not opening, is they are only opening Taylor Park this year because of staffing concerns, and they don't have enough guards. So with that, I think, and there's not to say, so I was gonna add to this a little bit is, we need to make a decision, I feel, for the guards' sake, is to let them know, hey, go find another job, we're not planning on opening. If, come June 20th, July 1st, things drastically change in the world, and there's nothing to say we can't approach people and say, hey, do you think we could open for a month? I just want to, sorry, Ann.
Okay.
I also wanted to comment on the filling of the pool. It is a requirement to fill the pool right after you plaster it. They just got done plastering it, and in order for that plaster to cure properly, it needs to be underwater for quite some time.
Really?
28 days, I think, so at a minimum. So that is being done regardless of what we're doing. It's just that, we won't have to add all those chemicals and heat the water now, so just wanted to clear that up, why we're filling the pool.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, Lori telling us with Taylor Park being the only pool that could possibly open, can you imagine, if you restricted the amount of people and the amount of people that come out here, I mean, the thing would be a mess. And
Well, is there liability for the village if someone would get sick too? I mean, or our guards got sick, or, I mean, we put them kind of in harm's way,
Kind of from the guidelines I've seen, even our guards, like when they're in the bathhouse and they're within 6 feet of each other, they're gonna have to wear a mask at work. Now, when they walk to the pool deck and go to their chairs, they're not going to because they'll be socially distanced at that time. But that too, to me, is another thing that they gotta think about. And that's why they say that patrol person, it has to be a non-lifeguard. But you can't tell me my lifeguards that are all, my oldest lifeguard working there right now is 21. Everybody else are young. That they're not gonna have that in the back of their mind. That they have to, okay, if the health department shows up, oh my gosh, there's 18 people standing there, but I know 4 of them are from the same family, and they shouldn't have to worry about that. That's my biggest concern, and I'm very, very, very disappointed that that is the choice that I think is probably the best. But like I said, it's very hard.
is that it, Ann?
Yeah.
John?
I think the question of liability is now faced in the Senate. They're trying to propose a bill that would cover liability regarding the virus, what's gonna happen with it. They want some protections for businesses, not only swimming pool, but I think it would be all encompassing. That would cover everything, that they're working on it, but that's when the Senate would get to it, and that's part of the plan that they're trying to. There's nothing written. Hopefully June they would have it. And unfortunately, I think they said the best thing to do would be close it, but keeping our options open that we could open it if the conditions and circumstances present themselves that would work for us. I think we have to keep that open and see what will happen. Again, that'll be depending on the guards.
Right. And it could just be, maybe long weekends, you know what I mean, where we can do 3-day weekends from the middle of July through the rest of the year. I think that's something I could probably, there's gonna be guards that want to, you know what I mean? They all want to, don't get me wrong. They all said they quit the job they got, the new ones would do it, but I can't in my right mind let them do that, knowing that we could open and 6 weeks later we could be shut down again. We don't know that.
Chuck?
I would agree with John as well, that, based on this ever-changing epidemic, it's hard to say, and if we can just possibly react if things would loosen up, then I think that would be our best choice too, so I would agree.
Mike?
Are you gonna try to vote on this on the village operations? Is that we really haven't spelled out about the pool operations on here, but
No.
it's not really spelled out on our agenda. I mean, did we give public a chance to weigh in on it? I understand what you're up against, Lori, and I support what you're trying to present here, but are we being fair with the local community not having it on the agenda for them to hear their concerns? I'm just throwing it out there.
I would agree with Mike. We haven't given them an opportunity at least to call in or voice their opinions on how they feel. I mean, if we're making a decision based on it, but again, it's not, it's not really posted in the sense that we're gonna make that decision. It looks on the agenda, to have discussion about the COVID, but nothing specific saying possible opening or closing. Are we
Yep.
not meeting the criteria of allowing people to?
I think there's two things that go along with that. Number one, I don't think that the village board necessarily has to take action to close the pool. I think I can do that as the administrator based on discussions at the board. Secondly, this really took off this morning, this whole discussion, and this is what I've been putting together most of the day. So I was kind of thinking about that too before the meeting, saying, we don't have to make that decision tonight, but at least some direction is what we need at this point. I don't know that the village board really needs to make a hard, fast vote on this at some point to say we're closing the pool. If the village board that would be my intentions, and if we want to do that, I would say we do that at the next meeting, but the way we're talking right now, I think, in my eyes, what we would do is, as staff, call the guards and say, at this point, we're planning on probably not opening. If things drastically change, we may, but until that happens, we won't really have, we're not gonna tell them to keep their job open at this point to come work at our pool.
No, I don't expect anybody to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, I don't know. I mean, this is an unusual situation. I think that the board does have the discretion to shut it on. I think we should make that decision. I mean, we don't want to keep these kids in limbo and giving everybody knows. Everybody knows the pool's not going to, if the rest of the pools in the county are not going to open, and Taylor Park is the only one that has a possibility of opening, we have to do it for the public's welfare. I mean, we have to make the decision. That's our job, is to make the decision. I understand what Nick, you saying that you could make the decision as administrator, but I think that the board needs to make that decision. We need to make it now, because, let these kids get on with it, man. I mean, I think, the concerns that Lori has expressed tonight, everybody's just freaked out, man. This is just a weird time. And, with liability, I don't think you'd have a very well-attended, and even if you did have people signed up, like Lori had mentioned, like doing it in groups, I mean, that's gonna cause some real problems if we're like only one of two pools open in the county, so, but that's my opinion. Chuck?
I would agree with Mike on that too. Mike, when you said to possibly let the community weigh in on it too, even though they weigh in and you get a lot of people saying, yes, we want the pool open, everything else, and like Mike is saying, and I agree too, that that's still in the best interest for the community to not open it at this point, based on the threat of, passing it on and all of the things that Laurie is talking about. So I think as a board, we should make that decision as well.
John?
As Nick said earlier, just before, he just said this kind of came on this morning, so why is it upon us to have to make that decision tonight? I agree. I think the trend is to open it and consider it, but again, we have not given the public their right to express their concern. I think they're gonna agree, and how many are gonna show up, I don't know, but for us just to vote on something that's not posted, in my opinion, properly, I think we potentially could have some concern. I mean, if we go on and we're gonna vote, what motion are we voting on? It says possible action on COVID-19. That's so vague in village operations, it's not specific, and how do we get, you could post it all the time, and if someone wants to just talk about the swimming pool, I venture to say you're gonna get some people in here that are gonna wanna talk about it. I mean, you can probably sense the direction we're going, but I think to have true action on it, I think the next meeting would be the appropriate time to make that action. But the idea is, even talking about it right now, we can because we're part of doing that, but to make a decision to shut it down with these possibly keeping it open, I think you have that ability right now, hanging on, but I think, I'd feel more comfortable having that back on the agenda, voting, and having it properly posted, allow people to have the opportunity to express themselves.
Mike?
Couple things, I mean, lost my train of thought here, but, we still, I mean, we still, let's say if it's, first of all, I want to remember, Wednesday, you said you were gonna get more information on Wednesday. I don't quite remember what Lori said.
That has to do with the YMCA pool.
The YMCA.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's say this is a sense of urgency to vote on this. Well, let's schedule a meeting for Friday or next Tuesday. It's just a quick meeting, and we give people the chance to at least maybe have Lori speak and explain to them why we want to go in the direction we want to go. Let them hear our side, and if they want to bring their concerns and stuff, I guess that's the route I would prefer to go.
I mean, if you're gonna do something like that, you probably have to do community center. I mean.
I don't think it'll be that big, but it's up to you. Let's
Yeah, I don't know.
Social distancing too, I forgot about that.
That's,
I forgot about that, Mike,
Yeah.
too, so, yep.
yeah, Lori, sorry, Nick.
I appreciate you saying that. I worry about waiting 2 more weeks and not having an answer. That's my biggest concern, is they've been waiting 6 weeks, 6 weeks already, where I keep telling them the same thing, we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. Now they're to the point, the staff needs an answer. You know, so your idea of trying to do it sooner than 2 weeks, I appreciate.
No, but this could be done in, we only have to, what, give it, how many hours notice? 24-hour notice?
Yes.
So we could have a meeting Thursday or Friday if we had to, just a quick 10-minute meeting, or it could be an hour meeting, I don't know.
Sorry, Nick.
Just to respond mainly to John, a couple things. As far as it coming on this morning, the discussion, this has been discussed for a couple weeks. I mean, we've been talking about this. I think the urgency maybe came on this morning is what I probably should have said. Secondly, you know, I do think that this is proper. I can understand your uneasiness about maybe taking a vote tonight. But it's really, in my eyes, I mean, it's a operational thing. It's something that we do. It's something we operate. It's no different than us talking in a little bit about opening up our ball diamonds or opening up our community center for rentals. It's something that it doesn't necessarily, I mean, that stuff's also not on the agenda. Noticed, I understand it's probably a bigger issue to the community. And I certainly had that thought today, thinking about this. But I still don't know that it needs to be noticed it's because it does say, you know, possible action and COVID related. This is COVID related. I do think we could legally take a vote tonight if we wanted, but I could still understand if you don't feel comfortable doing that.
I would agree. Legally, we probably could, but I don't feel comfortable not allowing the people to get an opportunity. Not only that, you can say the ball diamonds, whatever we're discussing, a lot of discussion is gonna happen on what the COVID and what the operations potential could be. And then I think, like I said, if we have it Thursday, Friday, whatever it may be, to have it sooner, I'm fine with that too. But I just think we need to give the public an opportunity. Just my view.
So where do we go from here? I mean, do we just want to go around and ask the board members what they are comfortable doing? I mean,
That would be polling, Mike. You don't want to poll.
yeah,
It's almost
I
like
don't
taking
know
a
what-
vote. You don't want,
yeah, I don't know what-
someone's got to make a motion or just say for discussion, we'll have it later.
do we want, oh, go
Can I
ahead.
just say something? When we closed the basketball diamond, or the basketball stuff, or whatever, we didn't take a vote, you know? Like Nick's saying, we just closed them. So it doesn't seem like, I mean, that lends itself to Nick's argument that it is an operational thing. He's in charge of operations, and he discussed it with us, but, I mean, he is the village administrator, and he kind of makes those decisions based on guidelines from the CDC or whatever. So we're using, you know, guidance, and we're kind of following through with that. So, I mean, that lends itself, I guess, to Nick's argument about not needing, but we could, you know, weigh in on it, but I don't know if we necessarily need a
Right.
vote.
Oh, I get that. Chuck?
You know, we're talking about the pool, but we have to all talk about the baseball diamonds, the
Right.
concession stand, I mean, all of those things. I mean, we're gonna almost have to do the same thing then to each one of those if we're gonna open or not open them, you know what I mean? Because, again, it maybe doesn't impact so many people, but it's making a decision to say we're gonna close the diamonds for the year. So, I mean, I have to agree with Ann, too.
So Nick, when you put on here tonight discussion of possible action on the village operations, if, you know, like if you know, if we agree that, you know, that's in your area to make that decision for everything, would there need to be any action? I
No.
mean, okay, just, okay. John?
The difference here is that we had clear direction when it was time to close. I mean, there was government, CDC, the state came down, well, you're shutting everything. Where Nick had no other choice, everything had to be shut down here. Now we're starting to open up and there's a slow opening and try to this bounce back plan, and then there's no clear direction from the CDC or the federal level on what to open, to kind of, let's leave it up to the, according to the state level
The local.
representatives, leave it up to the local and state officials, or local and municipal governments to make that decision. So again, I would not feel comfortable voting on it if Nick goes ahead and do that. Obviously, then we would hear, I think people are gonna understand it. But again, and if you choose to do that, your choice, and then if it it becomes an issue, what do we do? People say, no, you're not gonna close it. We get phone calls. Does it come back then for us for discussion?
Chuck?
You know, I think we're going round and round with this, you know, each, I think, have an opinion. So I'm gonna make a motion that we let the decision of all of these items about the parks and the pool to the village administrator.
Chuck, do you want to, let's just run through this list real quick, just to cover everything else?
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind?
Sure.
Okay. Is that all right if we just, just everything that the COVID
Yeah, right
COVID
here.
operations, that Nick was going to talk about the pool, the park, the
That all
community
line.
center.
Yeah, just more discussion. Do you have me to carry on?
Yeah, is that okay, Chuck, if we come back
Okay.
to your motion?
Sure.
Okay, if you just want to run through the list, and then we'll just go back to Chuck and we'll
Okay.
let you reiterate that motion.
Is there any follow-up questions about the pool operations? Questions? Okay. So then, moving on to the parks. So with the parks, we have baseball diamonds, playgrounds, restrooms, basketball hoops, pavilions, concession stand. These are all items that, there's a myriad of things that are going on in the county and state of what's open, what's not open. Baseball diamonds are probably the most popular item right now with phone calls besides the pool. Most of the baseball diamonds around are open, and the city has opened all of theirs. And that's, you know, as we do with many things, we try to follow the city's lead because for obvious reasons. If we open and they don't, then we get influx and vice versa. The baseball diamonds, I would suggest that I think we would open those up. We would put signs up basically promoting social distancing, saying that you can use the diamonds, but you're still to use social distancing and keep 6 feet away from people. And we would put signs on the bleachers stating that same thing. With the playgrounds, some of those are open, some of people are opening them and putting signs on them that say that you're, use at your own risk, we're not sanitizing this. I don't think that's as urgent as the baseball diamonds are, because people are trying to get leagues going or get practices going. The other thing, during all this discussion, in the back of my mind, I see there's different things being done at the state level again about possibly flip-flopping back the decision. So it makes me nervous to knee-jerk reaction to this and open everything up and then have to close it down again. So in my eyes, of this list, the baseball diamonds are maybe the most relative as far as timing goes, and probably the least amount of closeness to people and easiest to create social distancing with. So my recommendation is that we would open up the diamonds, and I'll have our public works do that tomorrow likely, and just basically say promote social distancing. And the playgrounds I think we should keep closed. The restrooms I would keep closed for now. Some of the other communities are cleaning them twice a day. The city of Fond du Lac has 1 or 2, maybe 3 of their bathroom facilities open at the marinas, near the boat landings and that. They're not opening the rest of them. Basketball hoops, many of those are closed. It's very hard to police without taking the actual hoop down. I know they get used, but I think we keep those posted. It's a very close contact sport. Pavilions, now here's the pavilions and concession stand. To me, we should definitely keep closed for now until give it a couple weeks. We can review this every time we have a board meeting, but those things, the pavilion, the community center, those types of things, if in a way I think we're soliciting that because we charge for that, and I don't want to, we're in a sense, in my eyes at least, by charging for that, we're promoting gatherings. I think for now, we just wait and see on that and keep them closed. We haven't been renting those out. Basically, what we've kind of set as a policy internally here is if your event, if you have the pavilion rented or the community center rented and your event is 6 weeks away, or, so our old policy was, if you get within that 6-week window, your refund starts getting diminished, right? So I don't know what that is exactly specifically, but what we've done now is said, if you're within 6 weeks and there's uncertainty, we don't expect people to cancel it at that point just so they can get their money back. We're telling them, if you're within your 6-week window and there's still uncertainty as to whether or not, we're telling you we're uncertain if the thing is going to be open, we're telling them we will give you 100% of your money back up to a week before your event. So I think that's only fair to the citizens, that, because we don't want them to cancel it and then lose it knowing they could have had it. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So that's what we're doing. So we're still allowing people to rent those, but now we're getting the questions. Okay, I have a graduation party June 27th at the Park Pavilion. Is it gonna be open? We don't know. So we're telling them, you may wanna make other plans. We're not sure if it'll be open at that time. But you can keep your reservation, and if you cancel up a week before, we'll give you a full refund. So that's the policy we're kind of rolling with right now. As far as the rest of this stuff, the community center, I would say we keep closed for now. The municipal building, I know I had been informing the board that we were looking at this May 26th originally, when the Safer at Home order was to expire, May 26th, of opening the municipal building up. That would be next Tuesday. Internally, we're kind of now tossing around the idea of the social distancing in this building. We're still required to kind of create that environment of social distancing. We obviously have the windows for our staff. We have service windows. But the thought of 5 or 6 people coming in to pay a water bill, or 3 people, or one person pay a water bill, one person at the court window, they literally can't be 6 feet apart. I'm considering maybe extending that another 2 weeks and kind of seeing what plays out here with the state and what possible orders may come of it. But bringing up the staff back on, we have people working from home, bringing staff back on May 26th, full staff back, and then keeping this building closed maybe for another 2 weeks, and we'll discuss it again at the next board meeting. So those are my plans, so to speak. The revenues item is just kind of a little bit unrelated to what I've just been talking about. I included 3 pages stapled in the back together of, basically, this is straight out of our budget. It's our revenues of the budget. These are all of our revenues for the general fund. And what I've done is I've gone through and highlighted areas that could be affected by this. And, where does that liability lie with possible loss of revenue? And obviously the biggest one is the shared revenue, the $1.4 million. That one, the rest of them, you can kind of see, the community center rentals, things like that. They're not large numbers. We're gonna lose money on those this year. We're not gonna make as much. The shared revenue one, this year likely won't be affected. Next year could very well be affected because it's kind of it's a 2-year cycle for the state budget. And we wouldn't see that effect maybe till next year. But I think somebody asked about revenues a while ago at a board meeting, and I just wanted to provide it to the board to just kind of highlight. These are really, I highlighted everything that I think could be affected.
Chuck?
Question, Nick, when you said you would possibly open up the baseball diamond, does that mean like that summer, the minors and the major girls and the boys softball, baseball, would that all be a go then, you mean?
So at this point, it would probably just be them starting practice. And, as far as them getting into games, they're going on with their leagues. I mean, all the leagues around are starting up. Not all of them maybe, but a lot of the local leagues are definitely itching to get out there and start practicing and playing. Now, as far as when games start happening and spectators, those are things that we'll have to deal with.
I was thinking, then the bathrooms would almost have to be open.
Well, we talked about that, and not necessarily. I mean, it depends on when you get to the point of, yes, we're having games with a bunch of people here, but if there's social distancing requirements and there's groups of 10 or more aren't allowed, I mean, there's plenty of baseball fields out there that I've attended to that don't have bathroom facilities, and you just gotta drive to the gas station or whatever. I mean, but right now, I think we will work towards opening those bathrooms, but I don't think right now is the right time.
Okay, just wondering.
Mike?
So the shared revenue, when do we normally receive that?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I feel like we get it in 2 installments, maybe June and December.
Okay, and then the courts,
Yeah, I should have mentioned something before I just handed it to you.
I'll just-
That, if you look at the courts revenue, that's very, very confusing. The number that I highlighted is really what, at the end of the year, kind of gets trued up. It really, all of the fees, if you look down, they're all split out between Brandon and Campbell Sport Fond du Lac. You know, that's where all that money ends up. That number, that number means nothing at this point. The 325 is what we budgeted. I would expect we will see a 20% reduction in that number, 10 to 20% based on citations for a month and a half have really gone down. But, yeah, the negative 12, don't pay attention to that. Yeah, sorry, I should have explained that.
Does anybody have anything, any questions for Nick? I guess one thing that I just want to mention is like, I understand, you know, like when John was talking before about like the pool and posting that, I guess for me, with being it a safety thing and all this stuff on here, the parks, the playgrounds, everything, the basketball hoops, I mean, we could schedule something for, you know, the community to come for each and every one of these separate items. I think this is just an unusual time, and I think we should defer to Nick, because he's the one that's gonna be getting all the questions anyway. I mean, you know, as far as making that decision to close the pool. I mean, if people are, it's that time of year where people have the questions, they're calling the village hall anyway. You know, it's not like, I don't know about the rest of the, I can't speak for the rest of the board. I mean, I've gotten maybe 20 calls in the last 18 years I've been on the board. I mean, they typically calling the village if they've got a question regarding, they're gonna call the persons, you know, like if they got, you know, a building thing, they're gonna call Pete. So, I mean, I guess I would just let Nick do his job, and, because this is a lot of stuff that we could post individually and see who shows up to talk about it. I mean, you know, you could have people complain about the bathrooms not being open, or, you know, half the diamonds not being open, so, but that's my 2 cents. If there aren't any other questions on this village operations update, I would need a motion for the discussion of possible action on the COVID-19 and village operations.
And I'll make that motion, like I let the decision and the management of this, just keeping the board well informed as to what those decisions are, as they're being changed or not, and let the village administrator make those decisions.
I'll second that motion. Got a motion by Horning, second by Streeter to allow administration to make the decisions regarding the village operations during the COVID epidemic. John?
My question would be, making a motion to do what he's supposed to do, why are we duplicating what he's already, saying that he has that ability to make operational decisions? Why are we making a motion just reaffirm what he could already do? Because it's not a policy issue.
Should we
It's
just do
not
a
budgetary.
Should we just do a consensus? 'Cause
The
I mean, we've
idea
got this-
is,
I mean, we've got this thing, I mean, I think we got different opinions as to if he should or shouldn't do this.
sure, I mean, you can keep the motion the way it is. I'm just saying that if the belief, if that's the way it's gonna be, it's an operational thing. I think he's informing us what he's going to do. And then if there needs to be a change of policy, then he comes back to a change of the policy and that, but to vote on something for something he can do already
If we
in an
didn't-
operational,
If we didn't like that, would somebody make a motion so that he wouldn't do that then? I mean,
I don't think there's a motion at all is necessary.
so why are we even having this discussion?
Exactly, that's
Okay.
my question. I
Okay,
mean, that's
so-
coming around to it. That's why I said I don't feel comfortable voting on something. If
Gotcha.
it's an operational thing, that's what Nick's doing already. And to make a motion for something that he has, Billy, he's informed us what's happening. But for us to say, because he's not asking us to change policy.
But I think we're kind of discussing, because I think it's under your opinion that we should delay this and let the community weigh
We'll
in
let
on
them-
it, so how would we?
Well, the question is, we're hit and miss on this. We're gonna close the pool. We're gonna have the ball diamonds open. We're gonna have this closed, and this closed. How do we do one and not the others? Because then I think that's where you have the issue of people saying, well, if you're gonna let people play baseball, my son or daughter has to go to the bathroom there, you're not gonna have your bathrooms open? And then it comes, I mean, you little kids, trust me, after coaching kids for many years, I mean, they're gonna have to use the bathroom. So the idea is, we're kinda going over it. I think that'd be more of the concern. So of all this, as I'm rethinking this and looking at this, if Nick has it, it's an operational question, is it not? He's not asking for more money. He's not asking about changing any policy.
Right, and I don't, that, wasn't my intention going into this, it was more of a discussion and getting the direction from the board as to what their thoughts were on some of these, because it's, the board should be informed on what I plan on doing.
You could inform us, I mean, that's fine
But,
informing us.
and then also discussion, and I guess, as far as do you have suggestions for, you said the baseball diamonds are open, but the bathrooms aren't, and this is open, that's not, do you have
Nope,
suggestions?
that's outside my thing, and that's making policy, that's not my role to do that. I mean, that's yours doing that, I mean, if people are gonna complain, trust me, people are gonna let you know if they don't like something, I mean, you let them know. Because I would tell you with this whole COVID-19, some people are gonna like it, some people aren't gonna like it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have people on
That's
both sides of the issue, no matter what you do, I don't care what it is.
every decision.
Yes, you're gonna have that. So for us to give suggestions, I mean, that's an operational thing. That's almost getting the intent that we're trying to make policy, and I'm not gonna do that. And that's why I felt uncomfortable voting on something. If you already have the ability to do this operationally, then why are we having motions? That's only my thoughts.
Thanks, John. Mike?
But I would agree also, but the thing is, when you guys approach this, the board has to make a decision. That's where maybe threw us on a spot where we got to decide yes or no without getting some input, so we were asked.
You're right, I did mention that the board, I feel like we need to make a decision, I don't,
I think even Lori said the board
Yeah.
needs to make a decision.
and maybe you're right with that.
I'm okay with saying, just leave it, give you the power, but baseball, the parks, that's pretty flexible. That's easy to change because there's no whole lot of staffing. The pool's a big deal. You're gonna close it or you're gonna not open it now, that's two different things. I mean, we're gonna close it, maybe with the possibility of opening it down the road, or we're not going to open it June 1st. And I would not have anybody wait for the job with our pool. I'm not asking for that, but that's just my 2 cents. On that there, so I mean, it's, I guess what we decided, I guess we did weigh in on what we thought about the operations, going forward. So I'm good with it not doing it.
But
So-
there's a motion on the floor. That's-
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Can,
You just rescind the motion.
yeah, we
You
can,
can rescind them, yeah. Withdraw it.
Withdraw the motion.
and I'll withdraw my second.
Fair enough.
All right. No action required. All right. Thank you for the update, Nick. Appreciate it. And Lauren, thank you for coming tonight and letting us know. And I know it's a tough decision, and it sucks, but
Very comfortable.
yeah, well, we gotta do what's right for the community, so appreciate that. Thank you for all your work.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, moving down to item number 3, discussion and possible action on appointing the following committee and board members. John Tillman, Board of Zoning Appeals, 3-year term. Ken Giebel, Board of Zoning Appeals, 3-year term. Sherry Benke, Chairperson, Plan Commission, 3-year term. Mike Will, Plan Commission, 3-year term. Don Schneider, Plan Commission, 3-year term. Jeff McAndrew, Library Board, 3-year term. Becky Kraffel, Library Board, 3-year term. John Duffy, Board of Review, 3-year term. Brooke Hills, Board of Review, 3-year term. And Mike Will, alternate check signer, 1-year term. I just want to thank all the folks that I called, all these citizens that are willing and board members that are willing to serve on these committees. If there's any board members that are on any boards that don't want to be on that board any longer or want to try something new, just, let me know. This is kind of like a living, breathing thing. I mean, we can change this at any time. We just would, get the board approval on it. Chuck, I think you're up first.
Just a question on C, Sherry Benke, chairperson, is that something that they voted, who is the chair? I mean, is that, it actually is
It's appointed.
appointed as a chairperson?
The village president appoints the chairperson.
I see.
Yeah, and it's like right on the
Okay,
document as.
okay.
Yeah,
Just,
that's at the top. Is that it, Chuck?
yeah.
John?
Again, this is good information, but it doesn't need board action. It's your right to do this, to point people. It's good to let us know who's on there, but what is the board gonna say? No, I don't want Sherry Benke, then what happens? Is it not the village president's right to appoint people to committees? Because what do we do? If we didn't like someone, we could change that? That's what I'm guessing. I'm guessing some of the stuff that comes on, I'm just looking at that. If it's his job duty to do that, then why? I mean, great to let us know, then what action do we need to take?
I guess I'd have to pull out the policy. It's been done for the 20 years I've been here, I guess. So it
I've
doesn't mean
always-
it's right.
It's always been my question when I've been on the board before, saying, why are we putting stuff on that? It's good to know, it's great information, but no action needed. You could put no action. I'm not sure. Could you check on that, just for more of a peace of mind, if that's something?
Sure.
Thank you.
Can we just bring this one?
Can I just put my 2 cents?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
I'm just
I
gonna
didn't see-
let you know how the county does it. Albeco brings his recommendations all the time, our county chairman also has responsibility assigning people. They do bring them in front of the county board for approval. And I think if the board, I think by maybe 2/3 vote, they could overrule those decisions if they wanted to. They normally never are, I've never seen one, but they do bring them in front of the county board.
Okay.
You can still check on it, but that's my 2 cents.
You want us to check on that, John? Just bring it back to the next agenda? I mean,
You
it's
can put it
not-
on there, Mike. I'm just checking on something that, it's great that everyone's on there. I'm not trying to be a pain, but it's something that you just let us know. It's more informational, then just let us know. And because we could change it, but I would just be curious.
I was under the assumption that it needed to be approved by the village board. I guess I'm not
I just, because they say he appoints them.
aware that it
Does it
was.
say pending board approval? That's the only question would be, he
Yep.
appoints them, is it pending board? I don't know. I just curious. I
just
want to
mean,
learn.
We have a committee on committee assignments, I'm sorry. I didn't give
Oh,
you permission.
you're good, Mike.
We have committee on committee assignments, and some people were very unhappy with their assignments.
Sure.
And they could petition the board at the board level to change those on the floor if they wanted to. But that's a hard lift, you know, just.
It's more for a learning opportunity, Nick, than anything, so.
Yeah, no, I'm
Thank you.
pretty confident that needs a board approval.
Okay. We can do that then.
But I can check to make
Good.
sure.
I'll make that motion that we approve the committees appointed by the board president.
Can I get a second?
I'll say it.
I got a motion by Duffy and a second by Will to approve the committee and board member appointees. Any questions or comments on this item? Did I mention? Yes, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. Communications, any communications? Any unfinished business? New business, we at the board meeting June 15th, not June 22nd?
Yep, I had that on my notes to talk about under new business.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask if the board, we had originally switched that to June 22nd. John, you weren't involved in that discussion. Because of me, I had a trip, but that trip is no longer happening because of the travel restrictions. So if the board is okay with the June 15th date, we can keep that. Does anybody have a conflict that they're aware of? I mean, it normally would have been June 15th, yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay, so
we're good with
just
that?
goes regular schedule.
Regular schedule. We'll go
Is
back to
everybody
the-
okay with that? Okay, Chuck, sorry.
I'd ask Mike if we could put on next budget for new business. We had talked a while ago about putting a third flagpole at Yellowstone Trail Park because the Optimist had come up with a village flag that they felt
Cool.
they'd like to. There was a past member that's passed away that was hell-bent to do this, you know, and he's passed away and he's left money to that as well. I think at the time, well, I'm probably getting into more detail than we need to because I'm just asking that maybe we put up for discussion and possible action at the next one.
So, could I just ask, Chuck, what do you want discussed, the village flag or the third pole, or?
The cost of the third pole, because it's about $3,000,
Okay.
which the Optimist would be willing to split. So
Yep.
I guess it's just a matter of approving
At Yellowstone.
yes. They have the design. Yes.
Yeah, we had talked about it a while ago, and then it kind of fell out.
Kind of looks like the business cards with the wavy and so.
So we can get that on the next agenda?
Yep.
Cool. All right, any other,
June 1st.
excellent. Any other new business? All right, need a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I guess, got a motion by Price, got a second by Horn to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thanks, everybody, for coming.